All right, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Clutter, Simple Simplicity. Today we want to talk about a very controversial topic: Swedish death cleaning, which is, could be considered a kind and gentle process, not only for ourselves but for those who we leave behind, or it could be considered a bit more controversial and hard. Attached to that, we'll talk about sentimental items and all the emotions around letting go. So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
What does Swedish death cleaning mean to you?
So to me, Swedish death cleaning means not leaving your stuff behind when you die. So people in your close circle, either family members or your closest friends, have to deal with all of your stuff. So it can be belongings, it can be property, it can be bank accounts, it can be paper, it can be several different things, right? So that's what. So Swedish death cleaning is the process in which you kind of tie loose ends. Maybe I don't know if I would say loose ends, but you kind of okay. So I'm gonna take care of this because when I pass away, this will be done.
I think about my death, and I've thought about my death regularly over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It's not like a morbid thought. It's more like, oh, what would happen if something happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like what would my parents do, or my partner and now husband, and now I have a child. So um, I've actually been keeping this in mind for at least a decade now. It's so funny because I think about like my footprints just generally,
Right.
And the other week, a friend of mine sent me this article, and she was like, "Oh, instead of Swedish death cleaning, there's a new version which is called the Norwegian life cleaning."
Oh.
And it's just a more positive. It's a rebrand of Swedish death cleaning.
Right.
And I think about it this way: just Norwegian life cleaning, where you basically live a simple minimalist lifestyle and you take care of things as you go. You take care of your finances, and you make sure that there's a person that will take care of their finances if something happens to you.
Right.
You have a will and people know where to find it. And you have stuff that is valuable and then not so valuable, and people kind of know where to find it, and if they would like to take it, or and you talk about it with your loved ones if you want to.
Right.
And this is kind of where I'm at, like especially after I had a child. We created wills, and I think about it often, like what would happen to all my stuff, into all my finances, into my child, into my dog. And so, we've definitely made arrangements. Okay, is it just for the older generation, or can anyone benefit from it? So can benefit from Swedish death cleaning at any age?
I think you can use that as a technique to just simplify your life. You don't necessarily need to be closer to death, like to have a terminal disease or be older. I think if you are trying to simplify your life and you can't, you're hitting a wall, maybe this could be the way to do it. You're gonna pretend you're gonna die in about, I don't know, a month. What happens if I'm no longer here? What are all the things that need to be taken care of, right? It could be
a positive spin on that is, you can imagine, okay, like if I was moving to Portugal in a week or whatever, in a month, because I want to live my dream life, I want to travel Europe,
Right.
or you want to go to Asia and travel there. Like, what would my life look like, and how would I want to manage my stuff around that trip?
So let's change it to Portuguese moving clinic.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds good.
That's a great technique, because I probably happened to you with me when I moved to Canada. I needed to get everything sorted out in Brazil before moving. So like bank accounts, property, like
Right.
all of my belongings and everything, and I came over
Yeah.
with 2 pieces of luggage in a box.
Yeah.
So everything else was taken care of before I moved. So like immigrating to a new country could be also a sort of a Swedish death cleaning, right? Because you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phoenix is rising.
Why is it so hard to let go of sentimental items, even if they're gathering dust?
I think, well, because we are connecting them to specific experiences or people in our past,
Memories.
right? Memories, and I connect them with people, specific people, and it's very hard to let go because it feels like you're letting go of the person, especially if the person passed away. It's like, oh, I'm keeping this because it belonged to my dad or my grandfather or my grandmother or my mother, and then they're no longer with me. It's the last thing I have of them. And then to let go of that, it feels like, oh, but I'm letting go of them. I think that's why people, it's so hard for people to let go of photos or any sort of belongings that were even worse if they were passed specifically to you, like your dad looked at you one day and said, I'm giving this watch to you when I die. So it's kind of like you are going to be the caretaker now, right? That would be even an extra layer.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Because I have a couple of items like that, and they don't like we mentioned in a previous episode. I have a box that my mom made of sentimental stuff, and they're all in there,
Yeah.
and they're there. It's not they're not taking a lot of space.
Yeah.
And I also have a sweater from my dad that I wear from time to time. So yeah, but everything else kind of stayed in Brazil.
Yeah. I also feel like the stuff that we possess, they take on our energy. And so when you receive stuff from your loved ones or your relatives, it like it feels like a part of them is in that. Even, I feel it a lot, like let's say in some jewelry that my mom has given me or some stuff, like I literally feel her energy. And maybe that's all in my mind, maybe like immediate connection that I make
Right.
with the stuff that's from her, or maybe it is actual energy. I have something from my grandma who I barely knew, so my mom's mom, and she made this beautiful thing for me, uh, and I keep it, even though I didn't really know her well. I didn't spend time with her, but she put effort, and I know that it's basically like an art piece. Like it's a blanket, but she sewed in my name and my year of birth, and there's some like animals in there. So I know like so much effort went into that, and it's like a large thing. And it's just like, it's so like every single time I look at it, I'm like, I didn't know this woman. I didn't really spend time with her, but I can tell that she loved my mom and she loved us. And even though she wasn't well health wise, she took the time to make this, and it's because she thought of us, right?
It even has your name on it.
It has my name on it and everything. And you know it's I keep it, and every single time I tell myself like, okay, like maybe it's time to let go. Like, you didn't know this lady, right? Like, it's almost like a stranger. I have very few memories for her from with her, probably just one really. But I just can't bring myself to let it go because of the energy that I feel from this thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm a big believer in energy, and I completely agree with you. The energy of those people are in those belongings. Yeah.
And I feel like I used to have a lot more sentimental items, but not a lot of them carried the same energy. And actually, it was really easy for me to let go of them. And maybe we can talk about it in the next question. But it was much easier for me to let go of those things versus of the stuff that I actually kept.
So let's talk about it. How can we separate memories from physical things without feeling guilt or a sense of loss?
I try to tell myself that the best thing about this person is the memories that you've made with them.
Yes.
And how they made you feel. So even in relation to my mom and my dad and my sister and all of my loved ones, I always just think about, okay, like I love my family, right? I love my friends, and I hope that it's the feeling that they gave me, this feeling of love and care and warmth. This is what I want to keep in my heart and in my soul. And it's not necessarily the stuff that's around me, because it doesn't matter. Stuff breaks, you lose it, it gets burnt in a fire. But it's just like what they've given you has fed your core. It's made you the person who you are. It's it's it contributed to your emotions and to your well-being and how you treat other people, and that's what's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we can, the best way to separate, to be able to donate those things and not feel guilt or loss is to separate the memories and say, look, the person was not this thing. The person is in my heart, is in my mind. I'll never forget them. This thing needs to go because it's gathering dust and it has no purpose for me now. But it's extremely difficult for people to do that.
Yeah, and for me as well, and for you as well.
Yeah.
We've talked about it in the past. You keep some crap that you don't need. I'm keeping some stuff that's
and I'm very good at letting go of my own stuff.
Yeah.
If it's my stuff, oh bye, goodbye.
I know.
But if something that came from my parents or grandparents, that's a whole different situation.
Yeah. Have you ever let go of something sentimental and felt surprisingly relieved that it was out of your life?
I don't know how to answer that.
I can start.
You go.
Okay, it's about the volume of things.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, I felt relief, because when you have piles of stuff from a few different people, the stuff starts losing meaning, because it just feels like it's a pile of crap that perhaps that person didn't even need, right? And they kind of floated it to you with love and care. So I feel like, you know, uh, I had a few piles and I sorted through them, and I actually paid attention to what all, like, each item meant actually for that person and in relation to me specifically. And I kept only those items that connected that person to me.
Okay.
So, my dad had some books and some geology stuff, some equipment, I don't know, from his young days. And, I've kept some of it, but it's not the most important items. And if a fire was to break out, it's not what I'm grabbing, right? I'm probably grabbing, the first ring that my dad has given to my mom, and it has 4 hearts for mom, dad, and me and my sister. Okay, so that's a direct link to myself, and
Right.
I can trace that item. I know how it was used in my family, how it was given to me, and why, and that is the value.
I feel like when I was still living in my hometown and I moved out of my parents' house, I had a bunch of stuff from them that they gave it to me. But when you immigrate to another country, you cannot take everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that was the time, there was this purge, and I talked to them and I was like, I'm not gonna need it. Do you need it back or are we gonna donate it? So that's, I feel like immigrating to a different country would help with the purge. And here in Canada, I still had some things, and then every time I move, I kind of go, I'm taking this back to Brazil. And then I talk to my mom about it, talk to my sister about it, I say, do you guys need this? Or else I'm going to donate it. If they say, yeah, we want it back, then it goes into my luggage and it goes back to Brazil. And this has happened with a couple of like pieces of clothing and some other stuff. I wouldn't say I didn't feel relieved for letting go of the sentimental stuff. I feel relieved for letting go of the stuff. Basically, that's it. Because it's one less thing that I am maintaining, right? And it takes away from the visual clutter in my place and all the things we already talked about in different episodes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you and I discussed that didn't make a cut for one of our episodes is the whole like fire, like random combustion situation,
Yes.
and sentimental items around that. We were talking about how, in case of fire, what will we grab? And since you and I are both immigrants, we hold a few different passports. So we talked about how we have this like little thing of documents that is an immediate reach for us.
Yes.
But both you and I also have small boxes of sentimental items that we have. I'm going to talk about mine and then you can go.
Yes.
So in my box, I have my dog's baby leash,
Okay.
which fits on the palm of my hand. I have my human baby's little hats that were given to him in the hospital. And I have an item that my sister gave me when we were kids, and a few other things like my mom's jewelry and some stuff from my dad as well. But what's interesting is that when you and I talked about it, you said that there was a fire alarm in your apartment one time that you didn't think was serious, so you didn't grab
True.
your box of sentimentals.
Nor my documents.
Nor your documents.
They are one right next to the other. They are right by the exit. And I thought, because I didn't see the smoke, I didn't feel the heat.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a faulty alarm, so I didn't grab anything.
But sometimes, like different situations arise, and so what's interesting is that you didn't think to grab it, and I'm sure that if a fire was actually to happen, I live on the 20th floor, which means that I have to grab my baby, grab my dog, make sure that the baby is well dressed for the weather and for what we're about to do outside of the building. And my dog, they're well equipped to be with me for, 2 to 4 hours wherever we're going. So I think that I would be so preoccupied with taking care of the immediate needs of my family. I think that I would grab the documents for sure.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you that there's a 99% chance that I would leave the box of sentimentals behind. And I'm okay with that. I know that I would be hurt, and I know that in my heart, like I would just be really sad. But the thing is that over the years, I've thought so much about what can happen to me and what is the value of life and what is the value of people in my life, that I've been really soaking my people in. I've been really kind of, my love language is spending time together, right? So like I've been just trying to remember their face, their voice, how they made me feel, and take it all in, because that is the most important part. And so I know that I would be sad, but I would probably not be devastated or crushed. What do you think? What do you think?
I feel it's the same thing for me. So in my box, my mom made a box for me with decoupage. So she grabbed a bunch of my old photos. She made copies of them, and she did a collage on the outside of the box. So it's like me growing up. So even the box is nice. I have all the business cards from every single job that I ever had, my dad ever had, and my mom ever had. I have my first cup, my first fork, knife, and spoon with my name on it.
Aww.
I have the first English-Portuguese dictionary I ever got at school, because it kind of symbolizes my language journey. Without English, I wouldn't be here. And I also have some concert stubs and some things from after I moved to Canada. So I have some of those things, and my dad's cufflinks, tie clip, that kind of stuff, and a watch that my dad left me that has no batteries, doesn't work, but is there. So I agree with you. If there was a fire, I would grab the documents and run. Yeah. But since there's no fire, the box is there.
Yeah. How do you think we can help people? So This is probably one of the most difficult conversations you can have with your mom or your dad. You don't want to be like, hey, mom and dad, you are likely to go in a few years. Like, do you have your will in order? And like, what do you want us to do with your stuff? And some people are more receptive of such conversations. And let's say I personally know, you know, if my mom would like to be cremated or not. And we over the years, we probably have this like a tiny part of the conversation every few years. Like one time we would talk about cremation versus being buried.
Right.
In a few years, then we talk about like, oh, do you have a will? In 3 more years, they ask me what platform I use to write a will.
Right.
So
I feel like that's exactly what I would suggest, that we go slow.
yeah.
Like you cannot just look at your parents and say, so let's prepare for your death. I don't know about you, but my culture doesn't, death is a very taboo subject. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Nobody prepares for it. That's why we're talking about Swedish death cleaning, is because people from Scandinavia, they have a very different way of approaching death. I was in a museum in Sweden and there was a whole display about death.
Oh.
And how people did funerals throughout centuries. In open casket, people were like walking around and having food and all that. So it's a very different way of approaching death. That's why they have the Swedish death cleaning or the Norwegian life cleaning. And I think as people get older, we need to talk to them about it because it's very important. If a person passes away suddenly, just a shock of, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? Mm-hmm. There was all this, I don't know, land, condos, houses, bank accounts, all this clothes, all this thing that all of it has the person's energy, right?
Yeah.
So the earlier you try to simplify your life, so you don't leave all of these things behind, right? Because like the saying says, we don't take anything to the grave.
No. Yeah. And I think it's one of those cases where you could lead by example.
Yes.
So what helped in my case is that I would just talk about, I'll be like, oh, like there's a school platform where it's Canadian lawyer certified. You can write a will, very easy. You just kind of fill in the blanks. It's not expensive. You don't need like a lawyer and like a million different procedures. So I would talk about the platform and how cool it is and how we did it for ourselves. And then, I watched this movie. I think it's called The Fountain of Life. I might be wrong, but basically in the movie, there's this couple and they love each other so much. And then the lady passes away, I think from cancer or something. And so the man, her husband, he loves her so much, he goes on his journey to find immortality, right? It's kind of like this almost sci-fi movie, but he gets to the tree of life. And if you something like drink from the juices of the tree, you live forever, right? Like you become immortal.
Okay.
And so he does that, and then the tree starts kind of taking him and growing within him, and then he becomes part of the tree. And so the symbolism of this movie is that immortal life is death. And then so you watch this movie and it's a beautiful movie, and then you come to your loved ones and you're like, hey, this is what a cool movie I just watched. And these are my thoughts on life and death, and this is what I think. And sometimes people don't respond to you and sometimes they do. And then slowly over the years, you kind of find out more and more and more. And some people are more receptive to having that conversation than others. But I think there are gentle and indirect ways of having this conversation with people. And same with sentimental items. When someone gives you something, you just ask a lot of questions. Like, you can be given something, right? And it could be like, oh, like, tell me more about this. And the person's like, oh, it was your grandma's. And you're like, okay, was it my grandma's favorite thing? Was it a cup that she drank her coffee from
Mhm.
every morning, or was
Mhm.
it just crap that gathered dust in one of the cupboards,
Right.
right?
Right.
And just got saved when she passed away for some unknown reason. Once you trace the item and figure out
Mhm.
the true value of it, then it becomes a bit more evident if this is something that you actually treasure, or it is something that you keep short term, or it's something that you immediately kind of
Right.
donate and let go and you have no sentimental attachment to. Because if it meant nothing to the other person, it doesn't need to mean so much to you.
Right. Yeah, I think this is what we need to. If there's one thing we can take away from this episode, is this: like, try to trace everything and kind of, okay, let's check with our family, let's check with our friends. How meaningful was this to the person that left you, right?
Yeah.
Something, yeah, exactly what you said. Sometimes it's like, oh no, yeah, it was just something that was laying around and now it's yours. And you go, what? But I didn't need it. Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to Portugal.
Yeah.
Am I taking this with me?
Am I taking this with me to Portugal? So instead of, yeah, we can do the combustion thing, right? If the thing,
Oh, talk about that.
so if the thing combusts by itself, so it catches fire in front of you, would you feel relieved, or would you say, oh my God, I really love this? So this is a way, this is one of the techniques. Now, the moving to Portugal is much more fun. Like, you grab the thing that you're keeping and you say, would I take this to Portugal with me?
Right.
But in any case, if you want to do the fire technique, if the thing spontaneously combusts,
Yeah.
would you be relieved, or would you say, oh, I need to go somewhere and grab it again?
And this is when you quickly realize that nothing matters. Because if everything was to set ablaze, nothing would matter. The only thing that you would do is you would call your loved ones, your family and friends, and you'd be like, are you okay? Am I okay? Can we see each other again?
Yeah, that's why I always talk about the minimalist, because they're such an inspiration to me. Every single episode they end with love people and use things, right?
Exactly.
So some people, they love things so much that they cannot let go. They're things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're just things.
They're just things.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, everyone. So thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Anastasia, what is the question of the week?
So the question of the week is, if you could keep only one sentimental item from anyone, what would it be and why?
So don't forget to find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Instagram. Until next time, on Clutter to Simplicity, where we cut through the chaos and help us simplify life, work, and everything in between.
Bye.